The husky was waking their baby 3 times a night, and every person in their life told them to crate him. They almost did. What the camera caught instead changed what they thought a dog was capable of. Coda was 2 years old and genuinely vocal in the way huskies are, not aggressively, not anxiously, but communicatively. As if sound were a primary language he used to narrate his experience of the world. He howled at the garbage truck. He held conversations with birds. He commented on the weather in a low, sustained murmur that their neighbors had come to find charming. They had known what they were getting into when they adopted him. What they hadn't anticipated was what Coda would become once their daughter Petra arrived. Petra was 11 weeks old when the first night happened. Coda had been calm since she came home, watchful, intensely attentive in the way he got when something in the environment changed, but calm. Then at 2:09 a.m. on a Thursday, Theo Marchand woke up to the sound he would eventually learn to fear. Not howling, not barking. Something lower and closer. A sustained, directed vocalization coming from directly outside the nursery door. Theo reached it in 40 seconds. Petra was awake, crying, face red. Coda was outside the door, still making the sound. Theo took 40 minutes to get Petra back to sleep. At 4:17, the same night, it happened again. His wife Simone was on maternity leave and surviving on fragments of sleep stitched together across the night. By the 4th night, she was crying in the kitchen at 3 a.m. and Theo was researching dog trainers on his phone. They moved Coda to the laundry room with his bed. He scratched at the door for 90 minutes and then went quiet. Petra slept through. They thought, problem solved. At 1:44 a.m., the laundry room door opened. Coda had learned the lever-style handle from watching them. He went directly to the nursery. Directly. Not to their room, not to the kitchen. Straight to Petra's door. The sound started again immediately. Theo stood in the hallway and felt the first real unease. That wasn't just sleep deprivation. He had never done this before, not once. The behavior had started at 11 weeks exactly. Not at birth, not gradually, but on a specific night. Like a switch had been thrown. He didn't tell Simone about the door. He didn't want to alarm her more than she already was. But he set up the camera they'd bought for outdoor security in the corner of the nursery, angled at the crib. He didn't tell Coda it was there. For 2 nights, he didn't check the footage. Then, on the 3rd night, Coda's vocalization outside the door was longer and lower, and had a quality Theo couldn't name. Terrian, not distressed, not playful, urgent, the way an alarm is urgent, sustaining and purposeful. Theo pulled up the footage at 5 a.m. while Simone fed Petra. He watched the first clip. Then he went to wake Simone. The footage showed a pattern that had been happening for 7 nights. Each time Coda vocalized, it was preceded by a period of Petra's breathing, becoming irregular on the monitor. Not alarmingly so. Not the kind of irregularity that triggered any alarm, but a specific pattern of brief pauses and shallow cycles that the naked ear could not detect from another room. The footage showed Coda at the nursery door before Petra cried. He wasn't responding to her crying. He was responding to something in the room before she cried. Each time he vocalized, Petra would wake, cry, be attended to, and when Simone or Theo picked her up, held her upright, fed her. Her breathing pattern stabilized on the monitor. Theo called the pediatrician that morning. If you stay for stories about what animals sense, before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Dr. Felicity Okafor, Pediatric Pulmonology, saw Petra 2 days later. The examination took 40 minutes. The conversation afterward took longer. Petra had laryngomalacia, condition affecting the soft tissue above the larynx that causes partial airway obstruction during sleep when muscle tone decreases. In most cases, it resolves on its own by 12 months. In some cases, it requires monitoring. In a small percentage of cases, the episodes of irregular breathing during sleep become significant enough to require intervention. The specific pattern visible in Petra's breathing on the night camera footage, the brief pauses, the shallow cycles, consistent with the mild oxygen desaturation events that characterize laryngomalacia during sleep. In those moments, being moved to an upright position, being held, stimulated into waking. Tea of all of that interrupted the cycle and restored normal breathing. That was what Coda had been triggering by waking her. Dr. Okafor said she wanted Petra monitored with a pulse oximeter during sleep. She said the condition was manageable and in Petra's case, likely to resolve. She said something kept waking her before the episodes became serious. That's the best outcome. She looked at them over the desk. I know you said it was the dog. I want to be honest with you. That's not something I have a clinical framework for. But the footage you showed me is very clear about the timing. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. They didn't crate Coda again. They moved his bed into the nursery with Petra's permission, by which they meant they put the bed in the corner. And he chose it within an hour. The pulse oximeter went on Petra every night. The Husky slept in the corner. Some nights were quiet. Some nights, Coda's vocalization began at 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. And by the time Theo reached the room, the monitor was already showing the pattern, and Petra was already beginning to stir. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. By the time Petra was 7 months old, the episodes had decreased. By 10 months, they had nearly stopped. The pediatric pulmonologist scheduled a final assessment for month 14 and told them she expected clearance. The next story involves a German shepherd who wouldn't let a father carry his toddler down the stairs, and what the father found when he finally listened. Theo kept the camera footage on his phone for a long time. He would look at it sometimes after Petra was asleep. Terrian, the night vision green of the nursery, the rise and fall of the small chest in the crib. In the corner of the frame, the shape of Coda with his head up in the dark, watching the thing only he could hear.